podcast where we talk about nothing. And welcome back, your duo of hosts, minus your trio, minus one Audrey, sus as hell Ember, who is traveling. So it's the traveling Audrey. We wish you well. In the meantime, you have to settle for Romina with the good hair and your dark lord of the interwebs, Roberto Blake. Welcome to No Assembly Required podcast, filmed in front of a live YouTube audience. Please like, subscribe, review, and of course, to everybody, welcome back.
Bruh.
Yeah, we've been on hiatus for a minute, haven't we? I
think it's because almost a month. Not gonna lie.
Because of life. I think people were worried that like our friendship broke up. I think, but it's like actually the opposite. We all like actually met in person again.
Oh, we got drama.
The thing is, we don't. The thing is, like, ironically, the issue is like our actual lives took priority.
Yeah, I mean, let's see what happened. I guess
Mostly
like between
you and Audrey were working on projects a lot.
Yeah, I went to Los Angeles before you did, and then you came to Los Angeles, and then we were all in Los Angeles at the same time.
A lot of us were flying on Thursdays because a lot of our stuff like would kick off like on like a Friday or something like that. I remember I was like at People of Video in New York before.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I was in Albany, New York.
How was that?
So that was great. It was great seeing Dan Courier put on the event. He's great. You guys probably know him as Creator Fundamentals. So Dan Courier is fantastic as a host. A lot of people were there. Owen was there, and he was at Vid Summit as well. But like Owen, I always love seeing Owen. So Owen was there. Andy, my operations manager and Awesome Career Cat, she was there because she lives in New York. So I was like, it was good to see her.
That's cool.
After all this time. Yeah. I work with her literally every week, and it was like I literally have not seen her in person in years. So because the whole pandemic. So that was great to spend some time with her. Who else was there? So many people. Dan Norton. So yeah, it was really good. It was a really good event. My talk went over really well. The clips from my talk have been doing really well on my highlights channel. So yeah, that was what I did before Vid Summit. Then first night of Vid Summit, obviously I came to your party.
Do you have the full, your full lecture that you did in New York? Is it online or is it just clips?
Because of the agreement I have with the events, I do clips and then I don't release like a full thing on my own until like 6 months plus later, because they need like some exclusivity on the full videos to sell the replays to their stuff.
Yeah.
So there's that. Also, I need to go and check up on my affiliate link, because the thing that I can do is I can use my clips and I can promote the replay purchases, and then so people could go watch all of the replays. Like Vid Summits is actually pretty affordable. I think Vid Summits like $199 to get all of the sessions, and like they have sessions from like Ryan Trahan, Mr. Beast, Quebo Cop, all kinds of huge people. So
that's cool. I guess your talk on, the replays for Vid Summit are up already. So that's already up. That's live.
Yeah.
And Vid Summit was pretty fun this year.
Oh, it was really a lot of fun. I didn't go to as many sessions because I'm like, I'm just going to watch the replays and take notes. And I'm a speaker, so I get to meet the big YouTubers at lunch anyway. So
are you looking forward to listening to any of the talks? Like, are there any that are kind of on your radar that you
the ones that I want to listen to the most? I want to listen to the one that YouTube corporate gave, because I got stuck in a meeting during the one that YouTube corporate gave, because you had YouTube employees there, and I got to meet a lot more YouTube employees, and that was great. I got well connected with some people that were not in my pipeline before, but I was on their radar. So there were some people from YouTube corporate who were very interested in talking to me in particular. And so I set up some stuff and some meetings. I might have some more interviews. You guys may know I did the interview with YouTube's VP of Creator Products, Amjad Anif, and that went really well, breaking the news about the new monetization features, picking his brain, hearing it from YouTube's perspective. So between him, Renee Ritchie, there's some other folks. So like am hoping to talk with more people from YouTube. I'd love to do an interview with Todd Beaupre, who works on the algorithm at YouTube as one of the engineers and lead product developers. I'd love to talk with him. Marquez did an interview with Neil Mohan, which is great. I'd love to talk to Neil Mohan as well. So I'd like, Todd's on my list of people I'd like to talk to. Renee's on my list. Neil's on my list. I had some wonderful conversations. Dave, I think I want to say Dave Rubenstein over at YouTube as well. Like, there's so many wonderful people I got to meet as YouTube employees and talk to them about creators, talk to them about YouTube's plans for the future. And the thing is, what shocked me was they knew my name and they approached me until I read their badge. I had no idea who they were. So I want to read the talks from Team YouTube. I want to do Patty Galloway's talk. Grow more by posting less. I want to do I want to say Stephen Scherer's talk on content verticals, because I thought that was really interesting to hear, hearing someone that young talk about content verticals and talk the real business speak, and he's the real deal. I've met him a couple of times. So I think that's really interesting. And I went to, and the session that I enjoyed, obviously, I think the most was, it was David Rosenstein. That's who I met. David Rosenstein. The one that I enjoyed the most, I think you were there for this too, Colin and Samir. I was there for their presentation.
Yeah.
What was special about it was just seeing them have their moment.
Right. Yeah, that was really special. I've seen Colin and Samir since the very beginning. And seeing them progress from 0 to 1 million is something that you can say really fast.
Didn't we know them when they had 20 or 30,000?
Yes,
or something,
it was
or less than that?
very, very, very small channel.
I think when we first started interacting with them, they had 20, 30,000 subs. And they were just starting to hit their stride. They hadn't got the Samsung partnership just yet. I think we hung out with them at a Samsung event once or something, or 368 or something.
Yeah.
So
it was very small, very small channel. It was emotional to be able to see them get to that after so many years. And being able to, I guess for them, being able to experience that with so many of their subscribers in the room is a really special moment. And it's awesome that it just aligned so perfectly with them being up on stage and giving a talk. It's not
they
you
were
planned
hoping
this stuff,
they were hoping they'd already be at 1 million giving that talk, but I think it was more special. I think that God had other plans, and that was more special for them to have that moment and have that moment with the community and have everyone celebrate and capture with them, and to see the love poured out for them. I think I don't think that that's the same thing if they had been at home and then called each other and be like, bro, we made it.
Right.
I do not think it's the same thing as them being there together, being able to hug on stage, being there surrounded by people who love them and their content and what they do, whose lives they've bettered. I do not think that I don't think there's anything more gratifying for a creator than being surrounded by the love of their fans and getting to achieve a milestone with them.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just being in the room with everybody was the energy was indescribable. And the fact that everybody was rooting for this one thing. It's really cool.
Everyone started cheering million.
And that was, all this stuff just kind of aligned perfectly. It's just one of those things where it's you really know that you're in the right place at the right time. And that's really what it felt like to be in the room with them. One of the talks that kind of surprised me was the thing about going to these conferences is I don't really go to the talks. It's not really like a thing that I do.
I go to all the networking and meet, and
Yeah.
I take meetings.
Yeah. Like when I first started going, so I don't want to give the wrong idea or impression for someone who's just starting out. When I was just starting out and like these conferences were emerging, I would make a schedule and I was like hardcore going to like all the talks, all of the events, anything that I could fit into my schedule, I would do. Um, but at this point, like I don't do the talks anymore.
Yep.
I feel like any information that I want to learn, I get from just by osmosis. And then also just by looking online and like
Well, I
watching,
go to the replays.
right, or just like watching like your channel, right, or like Daryl's channel or whatever, like just like being able to watch it or listen to it on my own time is enough for me. What I really get the most out of is from networking and being
Yeah.
able to talk to people and hang out with people that I don't get to see year round. And it's super fun to be able to be with everybody IRL. And then also be able to meet some people like Leela.
Yeah.
I've been online friends with Leela for years now. But
I
this
only
year
get to
was
see
the
her at
first
Vid
time.
Summit. I only
Yeah,
get to
this
see her
year
at Vid-
was the first time that we met.
Same with Patty
And
Galloway. I'm like, oh, after all
yeah,
these years of talking, it's like,
right. And it doesn't feel like that, but like it doesn't feel weird. It doesn't feel like we just met, but it's like that's the first time that we actually got to like interact with each other in the same room. But like
yeah.
in terms of like the talks, so what happens is that usually I'm surrounded by other people and they're the ones who want to go to certain talks. And so I stumble into rooms that I had no
Would not
intention
put
of being
yourself
in.
into.
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up in Zach King's
Yeah,
talk,
Zach King.
and I had no idea, like that was not in my plans. Like everybody that I was with just like happened to want to go into that talk. And so when I was in there, I thought it was a great talk. Because so often, at least at Vid Summit, I hear a lot about like the algorithm and like doing A/B testing and the thumbnails and the analytics and this and that. But there's not a lot of talk about the ideation process
Yeah.
of like really going down to like the creativity side of
Well,
it,
Zach
of
King's
like,
the ultimate storyteller.
right, where it's just like, dude, how do you come up with like 1,000 ideas in a month, right? And the way that he broke it down just like made so much sense to me that it actually helped me with one of the blockers that I had in my writing. So, which was like, I wasn't expecting it. Like I was just like watching his presentation and then I was like, wait a second. Like it just clicked in my brain and I was like, this actually applies to like what has an obstacle that I've been facing um with my own writing. And it's not even like video.
Yeah.
So that was actually, that was great. That was like a positive outcome from that. Um and the way that he explained it too, I mean, obviously like it's super inspiring. Like he showed this video that he did. I don't know if you went to that one or if you heard
No.
about it, but he broke down a video that he did for Adobe where it was with the Alexa um like spear thing. What is it, like the Alexa Home? Is that what it's called?
Alexa Dot.
That's what it is.
The Echo Dot. Yep.
Yep. And so it was like a short video that he had to do for Adobe, and like he just made this thing where like the dot turns into like a scuba diver or whatever, like tour guide, and then it's like his vacation mode begins, right? And so
That's
like his
hilarious.
bedroom just like fills with water and has like fishes and he just goes off swimming off camera, right? But the thing about that is that the video that he did, he actually like they built a set and they submerged the entire set into a tank
The ultimate
of
practical
water.
effects. Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's like, yeah, it would have been so much easier if they just added water. Um but no, they had to dunk an entire room into a pool in order to make it look cool. And this is like a video that's only like maybe 10 seconds. Like,
Yeah. They're putting more effort into like a 15 to 30 second video than people put it into entire ad campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah,
ad
exactly.
campaigns just use Photoshop. Like they're going all out with like there was a photographer who was killing it on social media. You probably might remember him at the time. He was doing something similar, but with photography. Vong Wong. Do you remember Vong Wong and his like crazy
Yes.
like projects? Like again, like the mermaid stranded on like a beach of plastic. Remember that? Like crazy like video where they had to literally find pounds and pounds and pounds of plastic for that one, or again, or like some of his other like crazy stuff, like just crazy stuff, all done with practical effects. Like my god. So yeah, Zach King is a whole different animal. Zach King, in a way, I feel is a spiritual successor to Freddie Wong.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Um I think like one of the things that was cool about Zach King was seeing that like his process for ideation is very community driven. So it's like it's not just one person who's like deciding, it's like having an entire staff of writers who are all just
So
like
when you
coming up
say
with
community,
ideas.
well, would you say team driven instead of community driven? Because then if it's a staff of writers
Yeah,
instead of
team
their
driven,
fans,
but I
because
don't want to exclude the community either because I'm fairly certain that he brought something up. Um but I don't want to misquote him.
okay, I'll watch
But
his
yeah, team
talk.
driven is probably more accurate.
Okay, so like I like that's one of the talks that I definitely want to watch. I mean, I'm probably gonna get around to watching all of these because, like, to be honest, like I there's a lot of sessions, but it's not so overwhelming and they're only 30 minutes a piece. You know what I'm saying? They're 30, 45 minutes a piece. Because there's like, let's see, there's because I have all the sessions in front of me right now. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 times 4 is 44 plus 2 is so there's 46 sessions to watch. There's 46 sessions to watch and they're all 30 to 45 minutes apiece. So guess what? That's like barely like binging a Netflix series or something. That's like watching like a Netflix series.
I mean, it's like attending a university.
Yeah, I'm probably before the end of the year I will have watched all of these, but the thing is when I watch them I'm going to take notes. So I'll just watch one, like I'll probably watch one a day or something and take notes. And it won't even bother me because it's like, of all the time I'm going to spend in front of a screen, that's like time well spent. And again, it's Creator University, and I can pick which ones I want to watch the most. And the thing is, actually, I don't have to watch all of these because I did attend a couple of them. I don't have to rewatch the ones I attended unless I want to take notes to give to my audience. Because what I'm doing, Romina, is so I'm doing this thing where for my channel members on my main channel, I give away 5 exclusive videos a month for the $5 that the channel members pay, and it's a good deal. And I'm almost up to 100 members now. I'm almost up to 100 paying channel members. And then on top of that, I have Awesome Creator Academy for my coaching business. So the thing is, both groups will get my notes from things when I attend other events. I can't like watch the videos and react to them because that's piracy. My plan though is, I just got a new achievement. I'm going to screenshot it. I did just get my 100th channel member. So I have 100 paying channel members.
What?
Yep. Next goal is 500.
Woo. Wait, where's the cheering? You need the cheering.
Next is 500. Can we get a 500? Yeah. So like, well, now next is 250, then 500, then 1,000.
So would you say that you're doing like the cliff notes?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I actually call it right now. I'm calling it Creator Notes. No, I'm calling it Creator Notes, but I have a plan for the Creator Notes brand later. So that's kind of I'm calling it that. But the thing is, I actually have a plan for that for Creator Notes, which will be another book series of mine, which will be kind of those YouTube 101, podcasting 101 type books. That will be part of what I consider my Creator Notes series.
Right.
Because I'm actually going to build a brand around Creator Notes, because I'm actually also going to build a physical product. I'm gonna build some physical products because again, when I got to Vid Summit, I got inspired. You've ever heard of Sarah Renee Clark? She's an artist on YouTube and social media. You might know her for the Color Cube.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I have a Color Cube that she gifted me while I was at the event in person. So I brought that home in my luggage.
Oh,
so now
wow.
I have that to inspire color palettes. So that's great. We also became great friends, and I got inspired for her on my digital and physical products. So now I'm going to have a new line of digital products inspired from having breakfast with her and doing an interview with her. And I'm actually going to go hard on physical products beyond my book series rather. So my book is out in paperback, and hey, Romina, the hardcovers are in now.
Hey,
hardcovers take forever to ship, but the quality,
yeah,
that's nice.
That's nice.
It still came out nice. Yeah. Still came out nice. And and so it's still perfectly formatted on the inside too. Made in the USA, by the way.
Nice.
Made in America. That's why it's more expensive. But yeah, everything still came out quality in this and everything like that. So again, very happy with both things. Books have been crushing it in book sales. For the month, I'm almost to 300 book sales for the month already. This month, just this month, I'm almost, and the book has been out less than 2 months because it won't be 2 months until the 22nd. So that's still like a good 9 days away. My hope is that we cross by the 2 month mark. If we get 50 more sales, which I think we'll get them before the 22nd, 50 more sales puts me at 1,000 book sales before the end of the month for a 2 month launch. And the thing is, since the paperback has only been out 2 weeks, in another so that'll mean just under a month, even with the paperback. So that's 1,000 sales. Technically, I'm at the 1,000 sales because I sold 50 copies by hand in person with my little swipe machine. So I technically have already done the 1,000 sales, 1,000 true fans. But I know that we'll hit that number before 9 days are up. So I feel really good about that. I feel really good. Because remember, that's what I want as my baseline for if I could sell 1,000 books before the end of the year, have 1,000 true fans, really support my book and my writing, I'll feel really good and I'll feel supported. And I'll feel like the book is a success. And hey, if I get Amazon bestseller, even if it's only Kindle bestseller, I will feel like a success. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
Paperback bestseller, Kindle bestseller. It's and now I'm about to hit my 1,000 sales, which almost no first time author, as you well know.
Yeah.
Most first-time authors cannot hit 1,000 sales. Their books just sit around, or they sell a couple hundred, or they sell 200, and that's that. But it's I made it. And getting a Kindle bestseller is one thing, but getting a paperback bestseller on Amazon in any category for any reason is a horse of another color entirely. And I have steep competition in doing that. So I'm very proud to have managed to pull that one off. Because
no, you should be. So would you say it's a success?
It is a success. It's an undeniable success. To be in the top 10 in any category in Amazon competitively is a success. To have, so many glowing positive reviews and ratings is a success. To have that many sales is a success. And I didn't even make a big announcement video on my main YouTube channel. That will grow the sales more. And that video will probably come in a week or two. The audiobook is hopefully going to come out before Black Friday. So I've been inspired on that. I talked to people about that. So there's a lot going on, but the books have kind of become a big thing. It's a big deal. I'm going to be doing more books. You and I already talked about that. But now I'm taking it further in terms of I really am going to become a creator economy educator and the creator economy professor. I'm going to lean into Professor Roberto, and I'm going to be making education products based on traditional products. So yes, I'll be doing workbooks and things like that. But I plan to do this creator notes, kind of like a Cliff Notes thing for content creators with actionable things for YouTube, podcasting, and live streaming. And I plan to make some kind of physical product around flashcards. I'm looking into traditional education products and bringing traditional education products to the creator economy. Tangible things that creators can, whether if it's a podcast system, it might literally be like a system where you have hundreds of cards that are podcast prompts.
Right. How would you say that you stay in touch with trends and um like new methods of creating revenue and the creator economy? Like how do you stay educated when you yourself are an educator?
That's a great question. I don't stay in touch with trends, to be honest. I am aware of them and then I
Mm,
ignore them because I've just never, I'm like, here's my problem. For me, I cannot be a creator that does jacking. I've done it before.
mm,
I can't do it because one, my quality standards are too high and I don't have a team around me that then can help me with that to move fast enough to take advantage of them. That's number one.
mm,
Number two, I don't trust what is trendy because what is trendy is what is popular. And I don't trust that anymore because I believe that it's all manufactured now. So I don't trust it. I don't believe any of it to be organic for the most part. And so if I find it sus, I can't, I can't in good conscience go with waves. I can't ride these waves and do these things because I don't believe in them. And I'm past the point of being able to do things that I don't believe in past a certain point. There's only a minimal amount of that I can tolerate. So my personality and temperament, and that's because I think it's because I'm older. I'm almost 40. I think you can get to a point in life where you literally age out of that path being open to you because I think if you get to a certain point and stage in your life, your personality and temperament are shaped partly by those experiences, by that age, by living a certain amount of life. And then there's things that are not a viable option to you that are an option to someone who will, in a way, take what they can get because they don't know any better. Like there's things you can do when you're younger because it doesn't matter to you. And because at a certain age, you haven't lived long enough to care deeply about things. You think you care deeply about things. Mostly it's hormonal. Mostly it's just young energy. You don't actually care. Not as much as you think you do. Because in 10, 15 years, you'll go, yeah, I didn't care about any of that stuff, or I don't now. And like,
right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like
what you
even
care about for more than 10 years is what you care about.
right. And even like there's even degrees to that where it's like I think about like even like if we're talking specifically about like career and work, like I think about the things that I cared about and that or that I thought I cared about when I was much younger, and then I looking back at it, I'm like, oh man, I really didn't like the way that I treated it, the way that I approached it. I really didn't actually care,
Yeah.
um, because if I did, then there would have been a different outcome. It would have been more favorable.
Yeah. Well, there's that, but also it's about what did you give up for it? You said you cared. What did
Right.
you give up for it? Well, if you
Right.
cared, what was the price you paid?
Right. And if the price is nothing, then you didn't care.
Like, like I'll give you a hint. Like I'll give you an example. If someone
Mm,
tells me they're passionate about YouTube,
mm,
but they make 150 videos in 6 years, I'm like, you're not passionate about YouTube. You're passionate about getting something out of YouTube. You're passionate about being called a YouTuber. You're
yeah.
passionate about the opportunity that YouTube, maybe you admire YouTubers. Maybe you looked up to them. See, this is I wish Audrey was here because she can speak to this better because she grew up with the generation. So she could
Yeah, she's got a
defend,
different perspective.
and she could defend
Yeah.
younger people who grew up with YouTube because you and I didn't grow up with it.
Yeah.
Like she could defend this position.
Right.
But my problem is, so when we grew up, you could admire people and really realize that it's like, you ain't gonna be them. You're not gonna be Kobe. You're not
Mm,
gonna be LeBron. Like, and you could put it in perspective.
yeah.
There is no longer with these younger generations any ability to put in being an influencer into perspective because they all have a smartphone. We all tell them all you need is a smartphone. All right. We all say all you need is a smartphone while we all have $10,000 worth of equipment. Right.
Right.
Okay. And all you do need is a smartphone to start. That lets you start. It doesn't mean you're competing though.
Right. Exactly.
You can play.
Mhm.
You can play. Playing the game ain't competing at the game. And that's no disrespect to people.
Right.
Some people have the talent to compete at the game with next to nothing.
Right.
Look, you could give Serena Williams a
Mm,
busted hand-me-down racket
Yeah.
and some weak shoes, and she will still destroy
And she's still
you.
gonna serve. Yeah.
You're right. And she will destroy you. And to be frank, when she was coming up, that's what she had. She
Right.
had less than everybody and did more. That's called talent.
Right.
Now, what most reasonable people realize is that they aren't talented. And when they realize that they have some choices, they can enjoy what they're doing and realize that they're not good at it, but they enjoy it and they like it, or they could do the work to get good at it.
Mm.
Now, back in the day, we realized it took too many resources and too much time to get reasonably good at something, and I don't have that. Meanwhile, there are other things I could become reasonably good at that will give me a better life situation that might have less barriers to entry and less things to overcome. Like me being a graphic designer instead of being an animator 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Too expensive. Software, too expensive. Hardware, too expensive. Too much time investment, not enough money outcome. Not a viable path for someone in with my circumstances, coming from where I came from with my background. Not a viable path. By the difference, graphic design, all kinds of open source options, affordable software, subscriptions would come later, is not as hardware intensive, can be done on a $500 computer. Aha. See? Like reasonable path. And even that was considered risky at the time. Same thing with web design. Web design takes very little resources. So the thing is, the things that, you could do were so limited back then that you had no choice but to be realistic. In this era, there's so many abundance of options, and there's so many success stories of people doing a lot with a little and coming from nothing, that while that's great and it should be inspiring, my issue is it's made some people delusional. Now, my problem is also that some people blame people like me and my friends in the education community for people being delusional, and they call us hope dealers when, like, one, I am the dream killer, or I've been told that. It's so weird. It's so weird because you've seen this, Romina. Have I not simultaneously been called the dream killer who wants no one to compete with them, and then called the hope dealer who makes everyone believe in delusion? Like, it's like, well, which is it? Because it's like, it's very unlikely that I'm both.
It's whatever the person is projecting.
Yeah, it's whatever excuse they're projecting onto me instead of taking some responsibility in life, right? And again, not just to me, but like in general, I think there's this delusion that social media creates, because part of it is this. The thing is, not me and my cohorts, but I do believe some influencers bear some responsibility for the delusion, because I do agree. I had to be brought around on this whole people only share their highlight reel thing, because my problem is, okay, when we complain about anything and we try to be real with y'all, everyone just says we're privileged and we're spoiled and we don't have real problems. And then everyone will still say that and have mental health advocate in their bio, which is stupid. So like, no one actually cares about mental health because no one actually does anything about it, and no one's consistent about
because they don't walk the walk.
Right. So like, they don't. Most of these people who claim to care about mental health actually don't, because they refuse to be sympathetic for the mental health issues of anyone who has it better than them. They will find every excuse to not care about the mental health of someone who has it better from me. I'm the only person I might know. Well, not the only person, I'm being facetious. You and I know that I'm one of the only people who will cry for a rich person.
Yeah.
And I will do it before they die tragically, like Robin Williams.
Yeah.
I will cry for somebody before they become Robin Williams, before they become Kate Spade, before they become Chester Bennington. I will cry when they're struggling, not just when they're gone.
Right. And I think that's part of it is like, I mean, really what it comes down to is just hypocrisy, right? Where it's just like, yeah, I'll care for you when
a lot of people get their first roses at their funeral.
Yeah, exactly. And why is that?
Right. Because the thing is, people cannot be sympathetic for someone they perceive to have it better than them. Right. Well, let me rephrase that. And I think that's a mental health issue too. And I think a big part of that is because that's envy and covetousness and insecurity, which is like where most of this comes from, right?
Right.
Now, because of that, what you have is you have a fake influencer culture that then says, I have to show my life to be perfect and happy because I have to show you all, and I have to be happy all the time because I have to say, I'm grateful for what I have and nothing's wrong and everything's great and wonderful, because if they show any vulnerability, they'll just be attacked for the vulnerability. You can't simultaneously tell people to be vulnerable and expose themselves and then knife them in their underbelly when they do. That's like, because that's what happens. You share that soft white underbelly and here come the knives come out. So what influencers have learned is to lie. Influencers have been conditioned and taught to lie. And by lie, be fake happy, fake positivity. And we know it. PewDiePie admitted to it. PewDiePie admitted that he was struggling and he smiled and lied and faked it and that he was struggling. PewDiePie got to the point to where he was drinking every day. Yeah. And he talked about his struggle with that. And he had real reasons to, like, for the things that happened and the way he was attacked and the things that were done in his name through no fault of his own. For what he went through, he had a right to feel depressed and to drink. He got a hold of himself, thankfully, and he was as responsible as possible, but he was going through it. And he expressed that. Now, thankfully, his community met him with, with respect and appreciated the vulnerability and honesty, but he waited until he was past it to be vulnerable. Right. That tells you everything you need to know. It tells you everything you need to know. The fact that he couldn't share during the struggle tells you everything you need to know about the world today. If you're successful, you're not allowed to be sad. That is the narrative that has been constructed, and it's toxic as hell. But influencers have to lie because we live in a culture that will not allow you to be successful and sad at the same time. It's not allowed, because how dare you? Because other people have it worse. That's the problem. We live in this society that fetishizes shame. We live in a society that fetishizes shame. So the thing is, everyone's entitled to their own suffering. Everyone's entitled to their own suffering.
I feel like, I mean, even with travel content, like I had my own shaming for some reason. Like there's travel shaming, which is like its
my God,
its whole thing. But like, and there's varying degrees to it as well. Where like, in my instance, like my whole brand when I first started the RedRomina brand was to be able to motivate people to travel and to learn about the world. That was like the whole thing.
And that it's not off limits to them because of like their finances or where they came from. Exactly. You were doing a lot with very little.
Exactly. And then, but apparently like people like to shame me, and then they say things like, who's funding your trip? Like, is daddy paying for it? And like,
no, you worked hard for your
like,
things. You worked hard for your things. And the thing is, you weren't out there vlogging with like 3 people filming you or nothing.
Right. But nonetheless, I mean, these were comments that I was still getting, and it's still a very real thing. And I mean, I just don't understand. Like, it's just very clear. Like the whole mission of the brand was like the complete opposite of whatever you're leaving in the comments. So it just like completely either went over your head, or you are intentionally trying to bring me down. And that's kind of sad to be in that state of mind, right? Where you have to feel, where you feel obligated, where you feel like this urge to bring somebody down just because they've figured something out.
Well, no one happy would be doing that, right? So that's why I think it ties back to the mental health thing is nobody happy would be doing that. And I think one of the problems that social media exacerbated is there's always this haves not thing. But the thing is, you could tune it out because you'd never, like, you could live in your small town your whole life and like basically never meet a truly rich person. Like you could really just easily just live your life in a small town, even in a city, and never actually have an interaction knowingly with a truly rich person, with a person. But thing is, with social media, you can interact with rich people, but also you have to see them be rich all the time and know that you don't have, you have to see what they have all the time. And it's inescapable, right? For the most part, if you participate in social media. And so I think that exacerbated a lot of people's mental health issues. But the thing is, it's not the fault of somebody who worked for what they have, that their existence makes you like insecure, And so, yeah, I see the comment and everything. The rolling, the hated, trying to catch me riding dirty. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, no copyright claims, please. But like, no copyright
No, it was
claims.
just
Sony
it was a
Music.
horrible cover, so there's no way they're coming
Oh well,
after
thank
us,
you for
man.
that. Yeah, because I don't remember the lyrics because it's so old. It's so far back that I barely. It's a good thing I remembered that much.
I'm gonna unironically add that to my playlist tomorrow.
Yeah.
And thanks,
Trying to
Kat.
catch me riding dirty. Yeah. Me riding dirty, trying to catch me riding dirty. I got that part right. See, I'm good enough for that part. But my point is I'll give you an example. It's like, it's funny. I get criticism all the time of like, oh, well, you're a course seller. Oh, you're a course seller. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with being a course seller. But the thing is, you know what's the stupidest part though? I've left millions of dollars on the table because I actually am not a course seller yet. Millions of dollars on the table because I'm not a course seller yet. And people with less subscribers than me have made courses largely with my material, by the way, and have made money. Even people overseas have pirated my content and sell my content in their course overseas. And people who speak both languages and everything have DM'd me and told me about these like courses like in Hindi that just sell my information. Like, and it's crazy. And so it's crazy to me the accusations I get when there's legitimate people like actually out there doing the thing that I'm accused of. And it triggers me sometimes because I'm like, I've went out of my way, especially I'm a Black Latino man in America. I've went out of my way to live an honorable life and not have a criminal record. So when anyone accuses me of any kind of impropriety, I want to roundhouse kick them in the face and I want to beat their ass because I'm like, I went out of my way to live as a Black man in this country for almost 40 years without any like criminal record or any wrongdoing or anything, because you can't. You literally can't. Right. And when somebody accuses me of that, it's more triggering for me because I did so much work to not be that. When it's actually really difficult, to be fair, it's actually really difficult to not take shortcuts. It's really difficult sometimes to not fall into certain patterns of behavior of the people around you. It's actually pretty difficult for people in certain backgrounds to basically be straight edge. It's not encouraged. It's not really like you get beat up for it. You get beat up for being straight edge if you're a Black nerd. Like you can't be like, if you're a Black nerd, all you get is abused for doing the right thing growing up by other people who look like you. That's what happens. So like it is triggering for most of us to be accused of anything for exactly that reason. And the thing is, it's done typically by people who will never have that experience in life and never understand that problem. And so it's incredibly frustrating for me. And then I'm criticized for having a bad reaction to it by people who will never understand the extra layer of having a bad reaction or having or not wanting to take that criticism. I'm like, no, I'm not going to take that criticism, and not from you. Like that's like a whole nother thing. And they're not considering that because there's this social media has cultivated delusion, self-righteousness, and impersonalization and dehumanization in people. Yeah. Because the other problem it creates is someone has to be right, and they cannot publicly admit a mistake because of the added shame of, having to admit that you're wrong.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I've always said this, Roberto. I feel like you could have like 1,000 courses out right now.
So there's two things interesting.
One step at a time.
YouTube is launching paid courses in their platform, which I think is going to calm a lot of the nonsense down around like, I'm not a cat. Straight edge for like, by my definition, is you don't do drugs. You don't do drugs and illicit substances. I rarely drink. I was not part of the getting drunk culture when I was young. And I like hookup culture for me was second base. And it's like, so I wasn't sleeping around. I wasn't doing any of that. Like, so I was I could go to punk clubs and appreciate the music and the art scene and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like, I'm 38 and I don't have any tattoos. I rarely drink. I don't have any children out of wedlock. And, you know, it's like TMI, but it's like I have like very monogamous, very like, relationships are relationships. And it's like, it's one person at a time. It's one girl at a time in my case. And that's that. I don't have any like children out of wedlock. And I rarely drink. So even socially, I've never smoked even a cigarette, and I don't do drugs and illicit substances. So that's pretty straight edge. Like that's the way that, at least where I'm from, around where I'm at, that's like what we consider it. And I like keep very close to a very traditional value system, let's say. So that's what I mean when I say that. There's going to clubs is not off limits. There's a lot of things that aren't off limits, like, because I'm not necessarily adopting other, maybe there might be different cultures of that then have a different definition of what straight edge is, but like I can't speak to those cultures or to those religious affiliations of what their thing is. So there's a different context of like, just not having vices, so to speak, is what you could say is like, I lived a life where I didn't have these vices that a lot of the people around me had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just
like
reading some of
just
the
not
comments.
indulging in things. Yeah, no, we're reading the chat a little bit. So like, yeah. So what I'm getting is back then, ironically, that was not really celebrated, and you were clowned like really heavily for that.
Right.
But it does lead to you being a more productive person. It leads to you having more meaningful relationships. It's really good for protecting yourself to have a career later on in life if you don't have like any type of like, privileged parents to protect you or something like that. Because like get you out of trouble, get you out of jail, all that kind of stuff. So like there's a big difference in what that kind of lifestyle like has the long-term benefits, but the short term of it, just like being a nerd in high school and being very being very academic, being very scholarly, being well-mannered, well-spoken, like this is a lot of stuff that's discouraged, and yet it produces some of the best outcomes in life long term. And now like you have a really weird, I think, counterculture thing where people are going to massive extremes on both ends of these things a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't. I mean, it's yes, it is. Some of it is how you grew up, but it's also what you're surrounded with, and which is the environment. But the difference now with this generation, as opposed to Roberto's and mine generations, is that they have an environment which is a virtual environment. And it's an environment that is hard to control. It's not as controlled as, say, like, what school you send your kid to, or like what neighborhood they grow up in, because all of a sudden now there's a whole other environment and society and culture that the children have access to on their phones and their computers.
Some influencer is raising your kids more than you now, because they spend more time with them. And when it's not them, it's their favorite teacher is spending more time with them than you are while you're busting your hump out there working your 9-to-5 job or whatever you have to do, or running your business or your organization or whatever you're doing. If you don't have a stay-at-home parent, whoever that is, if you're not a remote worker, like whichever parent works remote, which is like, that's going to be an interesting phenomenon and see what happens then, is okay, well, who's spending more time influencing your children? It's the media, it's their teachers, it's these influencers. And what if they have value systems you don't agree with? And that could be anything. And that could be anything. A lot of it now is there's a lot of encouragement towards casual drug use. I don't think that casual drug use should be punished by law as harshly as it is. That doesn't still mean that I want people doing it and that it's a good idea or that's in their best interest. And again, that's just going to be the pharmaceutical companies benefiting in the end anyway. So who cares? Like it's, you know, so that's a problem. Lifestyle in terms of people not being fit or healthy or going outdoors or this or that and saying, oh, well, that's okay. Or, oh, it's okay. Oh, healthy at any size. No, you're not. Like when the medical bills come due, when the medical bills come due, because again, who benefits from telling you healthy at any size? The people that you have to then charge you money for the treatment to maintain your health at any size or point in life.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It's like, it's all nonsense and propaganda to extract money from you in the end under the guise of some well-meaning virtuous thing. And it's, and again, it's not consistent with what we grew up with. And then when you think about it, okay, that makes it much harder to relate to a lot of this generation because we used to turn things off. They have no escape from these screens largely. But you have some of them that are now realizing this and they're rebelling. You have people who are rebelling now, but they're being shamed for that. But there's people who are like, no, I don't want to be on social media, or I will be on social media as little as possible. You and I are reducing it down to work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had my social media management company and I had that for about 4 years, and we were managing accounts in all sorts of industries, but it became so overwhelming. I got burnt out after like the 3-year mark. I was already starting to feel the effects of like being on social media constantly, and it was depressing. It was really bad. I mean, I was making money from it. And it got to a point where I was able to hire somebody else to help me with it as well. But it was just way too, it was just so much to think in terms of like creating for an outside source, like in terms of like social media in general. When I mean outside source, I mean like just constantly like putting yourself out there, and it just leaves such little room for introspection. Like there's really not a moment of just like being.
It also, the oversharing culture means it's impossible for these young people, if they become young influencers and they overshare their life, or even if they're in their 20s and they're oversharing their life, there's no room for actual intimacy in your life when every stranger knows everything about you. The irony is, and you know this as a close friend of mine, it's not that I'm hiding anything as much as for the fact that I've been around for over 10 years and I've made over like 1,600 videos on my main channel, over 2,000 videos, over 2,000 live streams, hundreds of interviews, hundreds of articles. I've done all these things. And I say none of that to humble brag. I say that to say most people do not know what my favorite color is. Most people do not know the names of my dogs that passed away. Most people would not be able to name my parents' names or my siblings' names. Most people do not know what my favorite type of music or band is. Most people would not be able to name the small town that I grew up in. Most people would not be able to name, like, say any real personal details about my life.
Yeah.
Internet. How much of that cut off there? Are you back, Romina?
Yeah.
Back.
I think you're back now.
Okay.
I heard
I'm saying like no one knows the intimate details of my life if they're not in my life. That means there's actual intimacy for my friends, my families, and the girls I get in relationship with. There's actual intimacy because there's things that they would know about me by participating in my life that other people do not. The internet knows nothing about my life. They only know about my professional career. 10 years, and most people only know about my career. They know about my past. They know about the parts of my past that I share. They know about my backstory. They know a bit about where I come from, but they do not know intimate details of my life story. You're back.
Yeah. You're back. I
think you're back.
No, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah.
I think are we good? All right. So I am not a cat in the chat wants to know what is your favorite color. No, I think Roberto's my internet's good. Guys, can you in the chat say, is it Roberto or is it me? Because I think my internet's fine. I think it's Roberto. Oh, I think he's got rugged. Let me see. Oh, here he is.
It shouldn't.
All right, are you
I
back?
have really, really good internet connection.
My internet's really good too.
Yeah, I think it's just a hiccup. So I just refreshed and came back in. That's why. So
all right, yeah. Who knows? Maybe it's like StreamYard. All right. So I am not a cat wants to know, what is your favorite color, Roberto?
Nope.
Oh.
Yeah. No.
Uh-oh. That's it? That's what you're gonna say?
No. Yeah. It's like no. It's like
you're not gonna tell them what your favorite color is?
No.
All right. Well, my favorite color is red.
Romina, like the thing is, Romina can theoretically guess what my favorite color and knows because like Romina knows what color my car is.
Yes.
Like Romina
I'm not
knows,
gonna dox. I'm not gonna dox you.
Exactly. So like, you know, Romina knows that because she knows what color like my car is. Like the one I bought for my birthday, the newer one.
Yes.
So like, yeah. Which is not a Tesla. Like, so there you go.
Yet.
Unfortunately. But like the
we're waiting for the Cybertruck is what's happening.
Maybe. I actually may not even end
Ford.
up. I think I might want the Ford F-150 Lightning because like what like as a utility, because at this point I might need a utility vehicle in my life. To be honest, you know, it's just... and like the Ford F-150 is also the car, the vehicle of choice for millionaires next door, and you know I'm about that life.
How about do you have a bicycle, Roberto?
I do, but I haven't used it since the move, and I need to replace the tires.
So you don't.
I have a bicycle. You didn't ask if I had a functioning bicycle.
Okay. Do you have a functioning bicycle?
No. I do want a moped though. There's enough local stuff like in my area. Like you've seen like the place where I live. So like you see like I could just take that to everything and just like you know.
Robert Henry Poet says, "Give us the color now, Roberto. We need to know from which your power come."
My power comes from the dark side.
All right, you heard it here, guys. Dark is his favorite color.
Darkness, that's my favorite color.
Darkness.
That's my favorite color. Darkness, where all my powers derive from. Darkness, you know, that's my favorite. Darkness is my favorite. There we go.
Bruh.
So you think would you get like an electric bike?
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Thinking like moped. Like actual
I don't. The Super 73 e-bikes look interesting. I mean, that seems to be somewhat of an influencery thing. So it's like I'm not against it. It's like I also know it's like yes, I want to do electric stuff and I do my part for the environment and everything like that. But I also know that 70% of all pollution comes from 150 corporations. So I know that my measly impact isn't really meaningful. I am not arrogant enough to believe that I'm making a true difference.
Yeah, but also those electric bikes, they go fast. It's kind of like
facts.
Yeah, you can just like when you don't want to pedal.
And the thing is, it is one less thing to worry about, you see.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you just like.
So I'm not like I said, I'm not against electric bikes, but it's one of those. It's like I would get what is affordable and convenient, and like someone could argue affordability, but like for my income level, I'm still pretty frugal because I think everyone overestimates what money can do until they have it.
Right.
Everyone overestimates what a certain amount of money does until they have it, and until they like people don't understand what taxes are. Like the only people who are like, oh, people need to pay more taxes are the people who don't pay any or pay very little. They're the only ones.
Yeah.
They're the only ones, right? Like, and again, it's like it's easy enough to be in a different position when you're in a different position, take a different position. Everyone I knew who started investing in the stock market 2 years ago, 3 years ago, got into crypto 2, 3 years, 3 years ago, all of them changed their position on capital gains tax once it affected them. Every single one of them was very, oh, tax this, tax that. And then they started getting capital gains. And they were like, oh, no, I'm against this. What do you mean? It's like they read the rules and they're like, oh, hell no, that's too much. They're like, no, I'm against this. People who became independent contractors, YouTubers, freelancers, they were all about tax the rich. Then they started getting self-employment taxes of 15% and DMing me and going, wait, what's the self-employment tax nonsense? It's like the thing that I've been telling you about and the thing everyone else was now about when you were screaming for our tax. Like, it's like, no, it's like I'm finally making money and what the hell? And the government helped me the least during the pandemic. And what the hell, guy? And like, no, I'm not. Like, why? Right. I'm like, well, no, you have to pay it because then otherwise they put you in jail or they take your stuff. It's like,
I mean, that's how everyone is, right? It's like nobody cares until they care.
Right. Like they care. No one cares until they care. So it's like, so the thing is, that's why I've always said, like, take a neutral or moderate position on almost everything. And then when it affects you, like, then you have absolutely the right to your position when it affects you. But until or unless it does, take a neutral stance on it for the most part, or at least a moderate tempered stance, or at least don't care about why other people took their stance or don't judge them for it. If something doesn't affect you, don't judge other people for the stance that they took. Be neutral. Be like, oh, do you? And like, oh, I see. Oh, that affects you. I see why you feel that way. And be fine with it and to each their own and live and let live. And then when something affects you, you should have the right to be able to take the position that's in your interest and not be judged for taking the position that's in your interest. That's how I feel about it, is like, why is someone being judged because what's in their interest isn't in someone else's interest? And why is someone expected to put someone else first? Like, that makes very little sense. Because that makes very little sense. I don't get it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be political. It's actually the opposite. It's one of those, but I can bring it up in the sense of, so why part of the title for today is, I think that social media as we know it is going to be different. It's not going to, social media won't end, but I think it'll be different because I believe that there will be a change in the approach to social media. And I believe that there will be regulations. I believe, tell me what you think, Romina. Do you believe, you saw what happened with crypto and how crypto used to be anonymous, just like social media, right?
Right.
The crypto companies were forced via regulations and basically, essentially, in a way where mandate, in a way, the crypto companies were mandated to say, you have to know who your customer is.
Yeah.
Don't you think that precedent can be applied to social media companies?
I mean, yeah, it could.
I think easily.
Is it going to fly?
What? I think so. Because again, if you can't say that people have the right to anonymously transact their business, and the fact that even as a protected person or protected class, that they might have a vested interest in being able to move money and support things that may not, like, be kosher where they live or whatever, right? If you can't use that defense when it comes to people's own money and give them sovereignty over their own assets, if they're not allowed that privacy, why the hell are they allowed it with content that they're publishing?
Right. Why can't you be an anonymous publisher?
Right. I don't think you get to do that in a world where we can't have that with transacting business among consumers, among ourselves, peer-to-peer. If we can't have peer-to-peer privacy with our own money, why would we have anonymity in our broadcasting and speech? Because, by the way, it was the Biden administration that wanted to do away with the anonymity in crypto. So future administrations will be within their rights to want to eliminate the anonymity in communication. Because if you can't have anonymity in commerce, why would you have anonymity in communication?
Because it's more fun to be anonymous on the internet.
here's the thing. You can have an anonymous handle on the internet, but I'm saying the corporations will know who you are. You can have any handle you want on the internet, but I'm saying you'd have to use an ID. Because, by the way, you can have a handle you want in crypto. You can have any handle you want in crypto.
Yeah.
But the platforms know who you are, and you have to use a government ID.
Right. But you know, in some countries, like, it's not even required to have an ID for stuff that it is required here in the United States.
Yeah.
Like, the level of, like,
well, the crypto
Big
companies
Brother that
operate.
we have
The
is
crypto
different.
companies are founded in the United States. So even if you're an overseas citizen, you still have to use an ID to use crypto platforms that were founded in the United States and Canada.
Right. But I mean, like, in general, like, there's just, like, not just crypto stuff, but, like, other stuff where it's.
And in other countries, you can request your passport and not have to pay money for it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, which I think we should do that. But my thing is, I don't believe that anonymity with regard to the platforms not knowing who their customer is serves any public good. You can have anonymity in your handle, but the fact is, there's no purpose aside from trolling, hacking, and scamming and griefing that anonymity and the platforms not knowing who you are, tying your identity to all of your accounts and being able to say, no, you can't just spin up another fake account, and being able to truly ban you, and not giving everyone the ability to ban someone, and block every account that they made tied to their personhood. Like, there's no reason to not have that. There's no reason to not tie people's identity to their social media behavior from a corporate side, so that there can be real accountability, and so that there can be civil accountability if people do things that they're not supposed to, and you decide to go after them because, you can't say anonymous BS on the internet and not get sued if we have these systems in place, which I think is going to be important. And the thing is, I think that that's bipartisan. So I could see bipartisan social media regulation that eliminates the clause for anonymity, in the sense that the social media platforms, to keep Section 230 and to say we're not a publisher, the consumer is the publisher. Well, I think that they have to know who their customer is, and I don't think there's a way for them to wiggle their way out of it. And crypto couldn't wiggle their way out of it. So I damn sure don't think social media companies will be able to wiggle their way out of it. And I don't really think that there's anything in their own interest that lets them wiggle their way out of it. I don't even think they have a good reason to say that they don't want that information, to be frank.
I guess the thing is, like, at what point does it end?
Here's the thing. I know the concerns about that one.
Yeah.
And I understand the problem with China's social credit system and all that jazz, all that nonsense they're doing. Here's the thing. I still don't think that the social media companies knowing who their customer is and being mandated to know who their customer is, I still do not believe there's any scenario where that does more harm than good. Because here's the thing. If the social media companies have to know who their customer is, can anyone really and truly slander another person without consequences?
They shouldn't.
Like, but don't you think that it's like, oh crap, the social media company, if I am sued, will give me up and they will know exactly who to sue? Don't you think that's a really good deterrent from slander and libel?
Sure.
From random basement dwellers anyway. Like,
right.
Now, this does stop troll and bot farms if you have to be tied to an ID, right? So doesn't that stop a lot of harassment campaigns on either side of the aisle? And doesn't that stop a lot of scamming?
So maybe. I mean, we have IDs now, and we have ways of verifying people, but we still have scams.
But how many people get away with them? No, see, those aren't scams as much as those are fraud. And it's very difficult. And if you get caught, Because the thing is,
The
there may not be
repercussions are serious.
there are civil consequences for scams,
Mhm.
but not legal consequences often.
Yeah.
Civil, yes, legal, no. But
Mhm.
when you now tie it to a person's individual ID,
Mhm.
it means that they have to now, in order to enact a scam, they also would have to enact fraud.
Mhm.
And there are real consequences for fraud. So now the penalties are much steeper. And what you're seeing now, because think about it, even with crypto, right? With all these
Mhm.
rug pulls, with all these things like what happened with Luna and stuff like that, like people are going to jail.
Mhm.
Like people are going to jail.
Right.
People are getting fraud charges, not just civil suits. Like it's going down. And then let's look at it a different way. All right, you saw like how Alex Jones has been like sued and he's gonna like have to like it's $1 billion in charges, right?
It's a lot of money. Mhm.
Okay, and that was for things he said on the internet on his platform, right?
Right.
So look at it from another way. If that's the precedent
Mhm.
of that, okay, damaging people in the real world with what you say online, if there's gonna be set a precedent through like Alex Jones, right?
Right.
And by the way, I'm not in any way defending Alex Jones, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
disclaimers and everything like that. F that guy, whatever. I'm
Mhm.
making the point that it's like if one side can set a precedent and say, yes, this was the right thing, we went after someone for what they said, and here are consequences, and they're held accountable.
Mhm.
Don't think that a different point of view or the other side of the aisle won't say, oh, bet you set a precedent. Well, let's take it to its furthest foregone conclusion. Because the difference is he's out there, and he's a human being in the public eye.
Mhm.
Do you really think the other side is just going to let people hide in the shadows and say what they want? Probably not. If there's a precedent for holding people accountable, they're going to want to take that to its furthest foregone conclusion for their benefit as well. And in their case, I think it's going to be targeting the anonymity, and I think it's going to be tying it to Section 230, which I
Mhm.
also think is a justifiable thing because you can make an argument that cancel culture constitutes tortious interference.
Mhm.
I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on YouTube. My friends do. And so
Well, they don't play one; they are
no,
one.
they are. So like, yeah. So like the thing is, if something is tortious interference and there's a such thing as accountability, the thing is
Mhm.
accountability cannot exist simultaneously with anonymity.
Right.
So if people are going to be held accountable, if this is a culture of accountability, and if everything is about accountability right now and justice,
Mhm.
then what that would mean is you can't simultaneously have accountability and anonymity because there's actually no way in real life without the internet to have anonymous free speech. There's not a way to truly anonymously transact. So if that's the case, and if the reason is for accountability and holding people to the rule of law and making people responsible, then there's not really a reason for it to exist online.
Yeah. I think like some of the stuff that is being discussed in the chat is stuff like having the government and corporations having leverage, having knowing too much information.
They already do.
Right. Well,
There's like they already like if we're pretending that this is a privacy issue, it's like they already know everything. They already do know everything one way or another. They
right.
pretend not to escape culpability, complicity, and accountability on their end.
Right.
They maintain plausible deniability. They already know everything. They just have plausible deniability because there's not a record to hold them to knowing everything.
Yeah, having complete anonymity in this day and age is virtually impossible. It's
Yeah,
just
no.
not, at least if you are a law abiding citizen, then
Right.
you have basically no anonymity.
None.
But
They know.
in terms of like having some level of accountability, having your identity tied to that really I mean, it is a leverage. It gives, but in a good way, because it gives them, it gives your identity is a leverage for accountability.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying
Reputation
I'm
holds
not
you
saying one thing
responsible.
is better than, because personally, I would like more anonymity, but I also am aware of the fact of, like, what Roberto was talking about earlier, where anonymity and accountability coexisting is a challenge. It's not something
It's
that,
virtually impossible.
right.
And it could only exist in a place where you had a more good faith within society,
Mm,
and you had, like, anonymity and accountability could exist in a culture in a place like Japan,
mhm,
but not in America in its current culture.
mhm.
It's not. It could have existed theoretically in an America in the 1980s, maybe in the 1990s even. But
Mhm.
to a point, because we still had dangerous people on the internet in the 1990s too,
Yeah.
doing very bad things that, we won't talk about here, which is why none of us used to use our name online, is because it's like, oh, you'll get kidnapped. So the thing is,
And then Uber came along.
right, you see?
I mean,
So
pretty much.
weird, right? It's so weird, right? That how quickly these things change. So, like,
Yeah.
that's like a real thing. There is and was a point where you could have that. But the thing is, we had more good faith and good and honest dealing
Mhm.
and more social responsibility
Mhm.
20 years ago and 30 years ago. We just did. We just were in a different place.
Yeah.
We're just in a different place. So the thing is, it could exist back then. It doesn't apply today, in my opinion, because
Mhm.
we no longer are a socially responsible culture, and we no longer deal in good faith anymore. And
Mhm.
therefore, I don't think that freedom is compatible with civility and with integrity and accountability anymore. And I think the only way to hold people accountable is to put their name on the line. And the thing is,
And to what like, here's the thing though. I feel like it is possible to,
mhm,
here's what I'm thinking, like, in terms of social media, um I think that it is possible to have your identity verified
yeah.
legally, but
Well, we
outward
have that for the
facing,
check marks.
right, but outward facing, I mean, you could have any username,
Yes,
and like,
that's what I'm advocating.
you
That's what
could
I'm
be,
advocating for.
I am not a cat, but behind doors, YouTube knows who you are
Well, if they
legally,
pay you,
right?
they know who you are. See, that's the other thing.
Right. Well, I mean,
Everyone
like,
wants to be a
well, I'm
monetized
talking
content
in
creator, so everyone will be verified
I'm
if they are.
talking about, like, in this new age of
Yeah,
social media where everybody's verified, not
yeah,
just creators, right? So, like, for
fair.
example, I am not a cat can still be I am not a cat without a profile picture, but
Yeah,
behind closed doors, YouTube has verified their identity,
yeah. By the
right?
way, I don't believe we'll slide to communism or socialism or any of that stuff. I believe that capitalism is a deeply rooted American value and idea that most people silently support, if not actively support. I believe that there's a vocal minority of people
Mm,
who think that they know better. And you know what'll happen? One of two things. They'll grow up and sell out, just like the yuppie generation did. They'll grow up and sell out and go work for mommy and daddy or mommy and daddy's friends.
mm,
Or when they want to, like, if they're young men and they want to ever like have a family and they'll grow up and sell out. They'll grow up and sell out and they'll be responsible, and that's what they'll have to do. Or they'll have the fate of unproductive men throughout time and will basically die off. That's how it'll be, because that's
mm,
your options. That's what happens. You
yeah.
either you either are a responsible man or you're a pariah to society and you don't last. And that's how it is. And this people will grow up and sell out.
Mhm,
Most of them will grow up and sell out. The remainder will just always be a vocal, disaffected group, and eventually we'll get annoyed and tired and we'll all ignore them. Right now, it's cute for them to get attention in the mainstream media. They can trend stuff on social media. That won't last indefinitely,
mm,
because a younger generation that's also been through COVID, the younger generation, Generation Alpha, they're
mm,
more analog ironically, and they actually in some ways hate technology and hate social media. They think Gen Z is cringe as hell. They don't want anything to do with it. They're a lot more traditional. They actually love their parents, and it's like, I think that Generation Alpha swings the other way on this entirely, to be honest with you, because I'm already seeing it, especially here in Georgia. I see it all the time. Like,
Right.
I see kids actually playing outside most of the daylight hours that they can play outside, especially after 2 years of not being allowed to. Like, so they're going to be different. So that's one thing. Two, I think on a long enough timeline, there'll be a reckoning and accountability for some of the things that happened in the current generation over the next couple of years. I think there'll be some accountability for things that happened, and there'll be a reckoning for some of it, some reconciliation of these were bad ideas. These will be bad ideas. And number two, a lot of the proponents of a lot of these ideas end up being exposed as grifters or ne'er-do-wells or unsavory or in some kind of illicit activity of another kind. So you see what I'm saying? It's like these people who do all these purity tests themselves always get found out. And so one, they'll eat each other, they'll expose each other, they'll self-destruct. There's like, because it was always corruption. And the thing is, in the long enough timeline, do you know what's really weird, Romina, for as much as people are cynical? For as cynical as people is, do you know what's really true? And you can look it up.
Yeah.
More than 98% of people are lawful good at all times. More than 98% of people are lawfully good at all times. Most people are earnest and hardworking and have the best of intentions and want to be left the hell alone. That is always true. And that's the overwhelming majority.
Yeah.
And the thing is, they're quiet as hell. They're quiet as hell because they got their head down. They're doing their work. They're living their life. They're with their family. They're with their friends. 80% of people, whenever I walk out of the door, all this oppression that everyone says exists. I live in Georgia. All this oppression that everyone says exists. All this authoritarianism that everyone says exists. All this fascism. It's like, I can walk from one end of this like freaking place to the other and not experience it. I'm going to experience it if I find myself in a back road in like the deep part of Georgia somewhere.
Yeah, that happens to everyone.
But that's just how it is. And that's like literally less than, like, I can walk 99% of this state. I could walk 99% of this state and not experience racism. I can walk 99% of this state and not be harassed for any reason whatsoever and be left alone. That is most people. You can do that. You can list 99% of your experiences in life. Even people who've been through shit can list 99% of experiences in their life, and people have left them alone and not tried to harm them in any way. 99% of people's interactions with any group of people have been good.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of ideology, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of gender, regardless of anything, more than 98%, 99% of your interactions with groups of people have been positive or neutral and not radically harmed your life in any significant way.
Yeah. I want to address some stuff just because there's a lot going on, but
okay, that's cool.
I have a lot to say.
No, please.
So first thing is probably we'll wrap up in a couple of minutes because we were going for like an hour and a half.
We can wrap up after your next thing that you say. We can wrap up.
But and like we try to not get political
because we're mostly apolitical people.
I am not a cat. But I will point out that, you know, some names were thrown out in the chat, and I just want to say that the hypocrisy is always revealed in the end. So yeah, it's not. I'm not too concerned about that.
I don't care how popular anyone is, because you know what?
Because it doesn't really mean anything. You know who else is popular? I mean,
the Backstreet Boys were popular. Yeah, like, Miley Cyrus was popular once upon a time. The Backstreet Boys were popular.
The Backstreet Boys.
Who cares? On a long enough timeline, no one's gonna care who these people were. You know, like on a long enough timeline, like stuff is only popular for a limited time, my friend. Like I remember back, because again, my favorite era of music, Romina, was like like the late 90s,
Yes.
who's still relevant? Who's still relevant from there? Because, like, by the way,
Oh, none of the people that I
nobody, right?
listen to on my
Man,
daily commutes are
I
popular
was
anymore.
like, I was simping for like
Yeah.
Maya and Brandy and Monica. They
Look,
aren't like
it is
they're
very
still gorgeous, by the way, but are they even relevant anymore?
no,
No.
and it's because it's very difficult to be relevant. It's very
Right.
difficult to
Is
stay
Usher
relevant.
relevant anymore? Is
No.
Genuine relevant anymore? Is Chico
No.
DeBarge relevant anymore? These were the biggest names from
TLC.
1997 through 2005. TLC, rest in peace to Left Eye. Like, there's like,
I mean, the thing
you
is
know
that
who's
like
still relevant? Dr. Dre and Eminem, and that's it.
and that's like because they're pushing it because they like because they break boundaries and
And
they
Snoop,
like
right?
right, exactly. Well, he
That's
finds his
it,
own ways of staying relevant, not
right?
necessarily like his music, but
Right. Fair enough. But
um
like, no one's relevant anymore. It doesn't
but
last.
no, I mean it doesn't last. It's very difficult to last for generations. I mean, like if you think about the Beatles, for example, like the Beatles were really only around for 10 years, the 60s, pretty much. And
Yeah.
like they were around for a very short period of time in comparison to like compare it to any other band, right? That's around now. Like Radiohead, right? For example.
Mm,
Like when you look at all these other bands,
Green
Rolling
Day.
Stones, like just bands that have been around for 20, 30 years, right? Um, they're relevant because they're still at it. But the fact that the Beatles are still made such an impact is a one shot in history. It's like something that doesn't really happen. Um, but in terms of like other people reaching popularity, I mean, it all comes to an end at some point, like they die. Like then people stop
Or they
caring
have
about what they have to
scandals, or they
say,
become irrelevant, or they just fade off and become irrelevant.
or
They age out.
hypocrisy surface, and
Hypocrisy. Well, oh
people
yeah, that'll
realize.
usually.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's happened, like even in the last few years, where people have realized, certain things about people or about brands, and they've just like realized, hey, they're not exactly what they stood for. Like this
Oh,
isn't
there's entire
legitimate,
brands that are gone.
right?
Like
And
100-year-old institutions.
so I'm not super concerned about that. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like sometimes I do, like I have anxiety about it. Like I think about it, and I'm like, oh
And
man,
then I
like
remember
is it going to be over like tomorrow? Am I going to be sent to the gulags? Like,
no, and then I remember that
yeah.
on a long enough timeline,
Mm,
a long enough timeline, reason prevails. Number one, on a long enough timeline, reason always prevails. On a long enough timeline, human self-interest, which is usually aligned to capitalism,
mm,
prevails on a long enough
mhm,
timeline. That's how it is. That's how it is. And the thing is, I also, again, I believe in the immigrant American dream. And I believe that it's impossible for these things to rise as more people come here who've escaped these things. And it's
mhm,
very hard for people to claim a very like open, progressive agenda, people like me and Romina, and then not
mhm.
listen to us. That's got to be that hypocrisy that exposes people and everything, because again, we have family who comes from parts of the world who have escaped of like these bad ideas. It's like,
Yeah.
so it's kind of hard to advocate for us and not listen to us at the same time. People trying real hard, but like it's really difficult to do
Yeah.
with and be taken seriously. On a long enough timeline, people self-destruct a lot of the time. And the thing is, what is interesting is what is worked for most people tends to be what is preserved and what prevails. And the things that work for exceptions, or the things that were outlier edge cases, those things do not propagate and do not last, because you
Mhm,
cannot really name any of that stuff that's really still around. You can't name, like, it's really rare. And like most of these things don't amount to anything, especially when you can't take people seriously and they're not hypocrites. The old
mhm,
guard of bad ideas were true believers and were consistent in their ideals, and that's why they are remembered,
mhm.
because rightly or wrongly, they were true believers of absolute conviction in what they um you know do.
Mhm.
And that's the difference, is there are no more true believers. It's
Yeah.
all grift now. It's all grift and graft.
Mhm.
It's all grift and graft. And since there are no true believers, they can't be preserved or remembered, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So what, and I think also results win in the end.
Right.
And whatever produces actual results is what will win. So you have to look at, well, who governs and gets results? There are people on both sides of the aisle that actually shut up, don't use social media, and do their damn work. Look at
Right.
Katie Porter. You almost never hear of her. Maybe none of you have ever heard of her. Why? Because she's a Democrat who shuts up, stays off social media, and does her damn job. And she's passed legislation, and she's beloved by her community and her constituents. Okay.
Yeah.
Love him or hate him. If you live in Florida right now, Governor DeSantis is doing the work for those people and trying to get them through these storms and everything like that, despite fending off political attacks during that, when everyone should just be asking, how can we help the people of Florida?
Right.
That's so, like, you don't have to like anybody to respect their work ethic and respect their results. And that's in the end what will win. Is in the end, all of us will ultimately come to the conclusion that when things get bad enough, all we care about is people who produce results, not even whether we like them. And all we care about is people who've been consistent in their convictions, not whether we like them. That's what it will be on a long enough timeline. I can promise you that history has shown us this over and over and over again. And that, on a long enough timeline, hypocrites, grifters, fraudsters, on a long enough timeline, they all get found out. There's nobody that gets away with anything. Not really. On a long enough timeline, no. In the present, unfortunately. In the past, unfortunately. But not indefinitely. No one escapes consequences. Nobody. I've never seen it. I've never seen anyone escape the consequences of their own actions. I haven't always agreed with those consequences, but I've never seen people escape them.
Right.
The universe doesn't work that way. I don't think anyone can actually escape the consequences of their own actions. I've never seen it.
The Lord's work.
Yeah. Right. Again, I think that's a good place to end it. So
yeah. No. It's good. It's kind of it's a cautionary. It's cautionary, but it's also uplifting and hopeful.
I think we ended on a positive note.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes we do that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for listening to No Sort Required Podcast, the podcast where we talk about nothing. Tune in next week when we hopefully have Audrey Ember back from the great North. The North remembers, and so do we. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed your duo of host. We will try to be consistent. No promises. This is a catch up and hangout thing for us. We try our very best, but we're not going anywhere, y'all. At least not for the time being. We'll catch you next time. This has been your duo, Romina with the good hair, signing off from the Enterprise. And, of course, your Dark Lord of the Interwebs, signing off from his man cave. We'll catch you next time. Up.